standing outside a luxury car dealership, arms crossed.
Golden sports cars gleaming behind the glass, and you feel nothing, not desire, not envy, just nothing. And that silence inside you, that hard-earned, carefully built silence, is the first sign that you have already won a game. Most people don't even know they're playing because on one side of this world, there is a man performing wealth, designer clothes, a car bought on credit, a grin that says, "Look at me," aimed at strangers who will forget his face by tomorrow that he posts it. He waits. He needs the validation more than he realizes. Every morning, he wakes up and does it again. And on the other side, there is you sitting in an ordinary coffee shop, in a plain t-shirt, laptop open, nobody looking twice. And that invisibility, that complete, deliberate, cultivated invisibility is your weapon. It is the thing nobody taught you, but you figured out anyway. That true wealth doesn't announce itself. It moves quietly through the world, like water, and it compounds in the dark. While everyone else is performing in the light, you walk through the city every single day, like a ghost. People in flashy outfits blur past you. You don't flinch. You don't feel the pull of the designer jacket in the store window. You see a price tag. You run the math. You see what that number becomes in 10 years, invested. And you walk away calm. Not because you can't afford it, but because you finally understand what affording something actually costs. Behind your ordinary exterior, a machine is running. Silent, constant. A machine built from decisions most people find boring and avoid and postpone. Until it's too late. A machine that generates more passive income in a single week than most people in the city earn in a month. And nobody knows it's there. And that is the entire point. Here is what modern consumerism actually is. It is a psychological trap, designed to keep you in a state of permanent dissatisfaction. Not because the products are bad, but because the dissatisfaction is the product. Your insecurity is the engine. Your feeling of not enough is the fuel. And the system runs beautifully on both. Think about the man who earns $80,000 a year. The moment he gets a small promotion, something urgent fires inside him. Something that feels like reward. He walks into a dealership, signs an 8-year loan for a truck that costs more than his annual take-home pay. He tells himself he deserves it. His friends agree. He drives away with the music up and the windows down, and dragging behind that shiny truck, invisible to him, perfectly visible to the bank, is a chain labeled 8-year loan. It goes everywhere with him. To work at 6 a.m. when he would rather sleep. Through corporate politics he has to stomach because he cannot afford to leave. Through weekends spent trading his time for money to maintain a lifestyle that owns him completely. The dopamine spike he felt pulling into his driveway lasted 30 seconds. The monthly payments will last a decade. And this exact transaction is what loud money looks like. Loud money is weak money. It is a mask. It is liabilities dressed up as assets. It is being rich in things and poor in freedom. And the quiet man across town, driving a 10-year-old car, living in a modest house, wearing a plain t-shirt, has 3 times his net worth and 10 times his options. Point 2 people. Same income, completely different futures, separated by nothing, except a choice about what money is actually for. Part. The part the world sees, the cars, the watches, the vacations, the designer clothes, that is the tip. That is what gets photographed. That is what people call wealth. But the real mass, the part that keeps the whole structure afloat, lives below the surface. Invisible, massive, compounding in silence. Real estate, index funds, brokerage accounts, rental income arriving while you sleep. Dividends deposited while you're out for a walk on a Tuesday afternoon, a Tuesday you own completely, because no employer holds a claim to your time anymore. This is what actual wealth looks like from the inside. Not a showroom, not a highlight reel, just numbers quietly growing in accounts nobody at the party knows exist. And when you reach this, when you achieve what people call stealth wealth, your entire relationship with the world shifts. You stop seeing $1,000 jacket as a status symbol. You see it as $1,000 that could become 10,000 in 10 years. You see the future that object would steal from you, and you put it back on the shelf and walk away. Not with sacrifice, but with the satisfaction of someone who finally sees through the trick. Your mind develops a shield. Every advertisement that reaches you bounces off. Not because you're cynical or bitter, because you understand what every ad is actually selling. It was never the product. It was always your insecurity. And once you stop being insecure about the right things, the entire machine stops working on you. Now, you sit in corporate meetings in plain clothes, while men in leased Rolexes look down at you. And you let them look, because inside, calm and unhurried, a single thought runs quietly. I could buy this building, not said aloud, not performed. Just the serene, grounded certainty of someone who knows exactly what they have built, in silence over years, while the man across the table was busy looking impressive. The lion does not announce itself. The loudest animals in any room are rarely the most powerful ones in it. Here is the part nobody photographs. The part between where you started and where you are. The late nights, the financial charts glowing on a screen, while the rest of the city sleeps, or scrolls, or spends. The years of choosing the boring thing, the unglamorous thing, the thing with no immediate payoff, again and again. Long after the initial motivation has faded, and left only the bare practice of discipline in its place. Every day was a choice. Instant gratification on one side, the vacation, the upgrade, the thing that would make you look like you had arrived. And on the other side, an asset. Something that would work for you, instead of against you. Something that would grow. Something that required patience, instead of performance. And every single day, you chose the second thing. Even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. They called you boring. Your friends. Your coworkers. Sometimes, even people you loved. And you smiled, the quiet smile of someone who understood something they hadn't figured out yet, and you kept going. You cut the chain of consumer debt, link by link. You stopped feeding the ego its daily maintenance of upgrades and appearances and performances. You watched it shrink, not all at once, but gradually, like something that can't survive without attention, when the attention stops coming, until the thing that once drove every financial decision you made, the need to be seen, the need to impress, the desperate need to be perceived as successful, became something you could barely find when you went looking for it. And money that had once poured out into payments and subscriptions and things you no longer even remembered buying began flowing in. Quietly, consistently, from multiple directions at once. Rental income, dividend payments, index funds compounding month after month, without drama or headlines or anyone posting about it. The machine was built, it was running, and it did not need you to perform for it to keep working. Is not a number in an account. One, it is a door. And on that door, one word, no, no, to the boss who treats your time as something he owns. No, to the business deal that feels wrong from across the table. No, to the lifestyle somebody else designed for you and handed you like it was a gift, when it was actually a leash. The quiet multimillionaire has the power to open that door whenever they choose, and that power, that specific ability to say no without fear, is the return on investment that no spreadsheet can fully capture. On a Tuesday morning, while the rest of the working world is in traffic and meetings and offices under fluorescent light, you are on a mountain trail, watching the fog lift over a valley, moving at your own pace, answerable to no one. Not because you are better than the people in those offices, but because you made different choices long enough that you no longer belong to the same system. Your calendar says the same thing on every day. My time. Not the company's. Not the mortgages. Yours. The compound interest graph, stretched over 20 years, looks almost fictional. The first 5 years, barely move. The middle years, climb gently. And the final decade, the decade that belongs only to the people who refuse to stop during the flat part, goes nearly vertical. It rewards patience in a way nothing else in finance does. And the quiet multimillionaire pointed at the far end of that graph from the very beginning and never stopped walking toward it. Point one, modest rental property became two. Two became a portfolio. Small monthly investments became a tower that now generates more than a salary. A seed planted in uncertain soil under the label first investment grew root by root into the tallest thing in the financial landscape, while the crowd outside was busy watching performances on a stage and calling that life. It looks like an ordinary house. Nothing remarkable. A used car in the driveway. A person mowing the lawn on a Saturday, while the neighbors wave and go about their day. But below the surface, if you could see the full picture, there is an empire. Properties generating income across multiple cities. Stock positions held for years without panic. Through every market correction. Businesses that no longer require daily presence to keep running. A vast, invisible network, built quietly, over time, in the dark. While the loud world competed for attention it could never afford to spend. The newspaper would print, "Ordinary man," but behind that headline, hidden from every person who never thought to look, the real headline, multimillionaire. And the gap between those two headlines is not luck. It is not a secret available only to people born into the right circumstances. It is a choice. Made daily, in the quiet, when nobody is watching, and the temptation to perform is loudest, and the decision to build is least celebrated. The people who love the quiet multimillionaire love him. Not his bank account, not his potential, not what he could do for them. Him. Because they knew him during the invisible years. They chose him before anyone knew what he was worth. And that the realness of those relationships is a form of wealth that no performance can engineer and no status can purchase. One step back and look at the world with clear eyes. Look at the illusions people are constructing around themselves. The borrowed confidence, the least status, the performance of a success that is not yet and may never be financially real. And ask yourself the question that changes everything. Are you building a stage to perform on? Or are you building an empire in the dark? Because the empire in the dark is real. It grows without applause. It compounds. Without an audience. It does not care what anyone thinks of your car, or your clothes, or your coffee, or your address. It just grows. Quietly, consistently, permanently. Plain clothes, a $2 coffee, a knowing smile, total inner peace. Not a yacht, not a penthouse, not a watch that costs more than a car. Just a person who is completely, permanently, unshakably free, that life exists. And it belongs to anyone willing to stop performing and start building. The question is whether you are ready to choose the quiet path, the dark path, the one with no audience, no applause, and no shortcut, but that leads somewhere. Nothing else does. If you are, subscribe to Nathan Pierce. The next chapter awaits.